The number one reason why doctors actually burn out is because they have that feeling of lack of autonomy and control. Locums flips that on its head. Now, what I do now as a locum is I schedule my life events first on my calendar for the next few months, and then I fit in my work blocks when I want to. Instead of as a W-2 employee, you're just handed your schedule and you have to try and fit in life events and obviously miss a lot of things as well as a result. So that's my argument. And, for me, I'm living a very fulfilling life outside of medicine, which makes me very fulfilled inside of medicine.
Welcome to How I Doctor, where we're bringing joy back to medicine. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Ali Chaudhary, a board-certified emergency physician, entrepreneur, and the driving force behind Locums United. After more than a decade in the trenches of medicine, Ali shifted gears. He built a Locums Tenens platform that aims to bring back transparency, fairness, autonomy to how physicians are staffed and compensated. For anyone not familiar, Locum Tenens describes physicians who take on short-term assignments. It might be for weeks, it might be for months. Ali is the number one Locum Tenens authority, and for good reason. He's lived both sides of the career path, working as a hospital physician, then jumping fully into locums work, and launching ventures in healthcare staffing and virtual care. I'm so excited to dig into Ali's story today, how he built the platform, how he's helping other physicians reclaim control over their careers. We'll talk contract negotiations, break down some of the biggest myths about locums work. With that, Ali, welcome to How I Doctor. Before we jump into the episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Evidently. Evidently is the clinical data intelligence platform built to help physicians harness the ocean of patient data they're drowning in every day. From chart summarization to AI-assisted note drafting and denial appeal support, Evidently makes sure the right data shows up at the right time. Physicians using Evidently report spending less time hunting through charts and more time focusing on patient care. That's why they've become a trusted partner to health systems looking to improve documentation, quality, and revenue sustainability. The company is led by providers and AI researchers that are dedicated to reducing documentation burden and helping clinicians practice at the top of their license. If you want to see what Evidently can do for your hospital or your practice, reach out today at www.evidently.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to our first ever How I Doctor podcast sponsor, Abridge. Abridge is the leading AI platform that drafts structured, clinically useful notes at the point of conversation. Clinicians remain in full control because they review and finalize every note. With Abridge, many clinicians report reclaiming time and reducing their documentation burden, myself included. I've been using Abridge in my role as a practicing emergency physician in San Francisco, and clinicians who use it report up to an 86% reduction in effort writing notes, a 78% reduction in cognitive load, and 70% decrease in after-hours documentation. The company was also founded by a physician and is completely dedicated to empowering clinicians, which is what makes them the perfect first sponsor for How I Doctor. If you aren't yet using Abridge, inquire with your IT department today or reach out at abridge.com/contact. Thank you, and now let's get to today's episode.
Awesome, Graham. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, man. It's been a long time coming. I'm a big fan of your work, actually. MD Calc, I've been using it for years. And when I found out that you were the one who helped co-found that, I was super stoked. And so really excited to be here. Thank you.
For people who can't see, Ali is wearing, I think, one of the best swag and merch pieces. His T-shirt, which he was giving away at our emergency medicine conference last month, says W-2 LOL. Obviously, a sign that you would argue 1099 is the way to go. Is that right, Ali?
Absolutely. I argue that emergency medicine, the way that it's being practiced today, is not a sustainable career anymore. The standard W-2 model is not sustainable. Our specialty specifically, but even medicine in general, but being specific about emergency medicine, has such a high burnout rate that it's almost not a question of if it's going to happen, it's a question about when. So I argue that as a W-2 employee, you have no control, and you have very little control over your schedule, how when you work and when you don't. And the number one reason why doctors actually burn out is because they have that feeling of lack of autonomy and control. Locums flips that on its head. Now, what I do now as a locum is I schedule my life events first on my calendar for the next few months, and then I fit in my work blocks when I want to. Instead of as a W-2 employee, you're just handed your schedule, and you have to try and fit in life events and obviously miss a lot of things as well as a result. So that's my argument. And for me, I'm living a very fulfilling life outside of medicine, which makes me very fulfilled inside of medicine.
Ollie, that's a great answer. My first question was literally, if you had to sell a skeptical colleague on locums, what would you say? But I think you literally answered it right there.
I was talking to a pediatric emergency physician the other day, and she was interested in a job, and I just showed her my schedule. She's like, I had some family problems at home. There's someone she had to take care of, and she just felt like guilty for not being home enough. And I literally showed her my schedule over the last 2 months, and she saw these massive chunks of time off, 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time off. And her jaw just dropped. She's like, "Is this for real? Like, are you like just playing me for a fool?" I'm like, "No, this is my reality. This is my new
Well,
normal."
Ollie, I think it's fascinating. Is this really an argument that you are making specifically for emergency physicians, or do you think this is a wider argument for shift workers, or is it for all physicians, or like how broadly do you view that kind of vision?
Yeah, so being an emergency physician myself, I can absolutely speak to emergency physicians without any hesitation or doubt. But I know several other specialties that are thriving in locums as well. GI does very well with locums. Anesthesia is super hot. Radiology is insanely hot right now. CRNAs, which aren't physicians, but they are very hot as well. I have a friend who's a medical oncologist doing almost 7 figures um, doing locums, right? Making more than double than what he would make as an employee. So just about any specialty you think about, like there's opportunities for locums that can free you from the medical matrix, as I call it.
That's fascinating to hear. I think the two that surprised me the most are GI and oncology, because I guess I view those specialties as needing some level of consistency in care, and those specialists are building relationships over time. Am I wrong there?
No, the reality is there's just not enough docs to go around. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there's just such a massive shortage. So these doctors are leveraging their skills, especially for GI. It's a more procedural based specialty,
Yeah, sure.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
so there's definitely a demand for that. Every hospital I go to is short of GI docs.
Of somebody. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have an ERCP doc, and they're just transferring patients out, and all this. This happens quite commonly at a lot of the sites that I work at that are a couple hours outside the big cities.
Ollie, how did you get started in this? You mentioned you started out, I guess, right after residency as a W-2, as an employee of somebody else, right?
Yes. So when I graduated in 2014, I just went with what everybody else was doing, taking a W-2 job, and I was quite happy with my actual job itself. But it was just the fact that I had no control, and it was a light bulb moment that I had when one of my friends said about a year in, "Hey, Ali, I thought you were going to have more time off to do more things than you do right now, because it sounds like you're still pretty busy."
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the pitch from emergency medicine is like when you're on, you're on, when you're off, you're off, right?
Off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Which is nice, but like your schedule throughout the week, it fluctuates. And especially as a new grad, when you're not like a senior who's controlling the schedule, making the schedule, you kind of get the short end of the schedule. So nights into yeah, late night shifts, or what do you call them, the swing shifts, morning shifts, just everything just kind of all jumbled all over the place. And I was getting burnt out. I'm like, man, you're right. This is kind of like not as good as I thought it was going to be. And then, I just started picking up some locum shifts on the side just because I wanted to pay off my house that I just bought. I was doing and some loans that I had accrued, obviously, during med school. So I was like, let me just make some more cash on the side. Not intending for this to be anything. I was just like, hey, I'm just going to work on the side. And then after like 4 or 5 months of doing this, I realized that a week worth of locum shifts, I was making more than an entire month of my full time job as an employee.
Wow.
That was my second light bulb moment. I'm like, wait a
Yeah,
minute, right? Like the math isn't mathing here. So
yeah,
now I have a choice to make. Am I going to devalue myself by working twice as hard to make the same amount, or I can either make double or work half as much and make the same amount? Does that make sense?
yeah.
And
Totally.
so I had to come. It was a hard decision because I actually liked a lot the people I was working with, and again, this very supportive department. I actually really liked it, and that was a very hard decision for me. But ultimately, I realized that I had to do what was best for me and my family, and I decided to kind of make that switch over to locums.
Ollie, I think locums can feel kind of risky to some. One of the many benefits, I would say, of employed W-2 work is your kind of guaranteed shifts. The job probably comes with benefits. Maybe it's got a 401k and it probably has health insurance, hopefully. What do you say when someone says, I like the stability of my W-2 job where I've worked there for 10 years, and maybe they do have a great practice environment like you did as well.
Absolutely. I get this question all the time, and I'm laughing just because
Yeah,
it's such a common myth. I argue that locum tenens is actually more stable than W-2 employment. Now, it may not be 100% the case across the board. Like, for example, a place like Kaiser, where they have established hospitals and systems, you're
sure.
employed there, and you're not. No one else is taking over that contract, right? But I'll tell you, about a month ago, I spoke to another physician, and on the East Coast, she is an academic physician, emergency medicine. She worked for this hospital system that and was teaching residents called MCP Hahnemann in Philly.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
She
Yeah,
was there
yeah.
for many years, and then they just shut down the hospital. There was, I don't want to go into details about that, but then she transitioned over to Crozier, was an academic physician there, worked there for several years, and then they shut down. Not to mention, so that's one example. And then another example of the hospital system that's just about an hour and a half down here in Delaware. Independent group that's been there for 30 years. Hospital decides a year and a half ago that we're taking you guys in as employees. Take it or leave it, right? I can't tell you how many numerous times I've heard from directly in my DMs, dozens, if not hundreds of times, just things that I'm seeing over the last 10 years myself. So you have no control when you're an employee at all. Any contract management group can come in, the hospital can choose to employ you anytime, and then you're just stuck having to either take a contract that maybe is not what you initially signed up for, or you have to figure out what are we going to do next. When you're already established there, your kids are going to school, your family moves there, you have extended family there, and you haven't played the locum game yet and don't know how to play that. Now you're a sitting duck, right? Whereas with locums, I can live anywhere I want on this earth.
Yeah.
I can live in Portugal, fly back for a week of shifts, and then just go back, right? And then I'll usually have a couple of different sites that I work at that credential at least 2 or 3 different sites. So I'm diversifying my risk.
Yep.
So instead of it being like been married to one site, and if they say, "Hey, we don't need you anymore," I'm stuck. No, I'm always credentialed at 2 or 3 different facilities. That way, if anyone decides to, that they get fully staffed, I'm not losing revenue. I tell doctors this as well. Listen, if you're an employee, you should not be picking up extra PRN shifts at your own hospital or at any hospital down the road. That's usually W-2. So doctors don't know how to we understand basic finance, and that is hurting us severely. So I this is the analogy I give. It's like having a bucket of water and you have large holes at the bottom. Now you can add more shifts to the bucket or more water, but it's just going to keep going out as fast as it came in because you're still being taxed significantly the same way that you would be. Now, 1099 income is different, right? The business income is different because you get to keep more of what you make because you can use that pre-tax income for business expenses and whatever else other things that are legitimate and legal, right? And so just this very basic understanding, as a locum, you are a CEO of your own locum practice. You're no longer an employee of anyone else. You're the CEO of a locum practice, a small business, which the U.S. tax code is actually designed to be more advantageous towards. You're not a W-2 employee.
A quick word about today's sponsor, Evidently. Their platform turns an ocean of fragmented clinical data into concise, actionable insights. Chart summaries, note drafting, denial appeal support, HCC capture, so you spend time caring, not chasing. A transplant surgeon at a large academic medical center recently took transplant referral review from 2 hours to 20 minutes with AI-assisted chart review from Evidently. Physicians deserve workflows that improve accuracy, reduce exhausting chart biopsy, and help us practice at the top of our license. If you want to see how this might work in your hospital or your department, go to evidently.com. That's evidently.com to get started today. Hey, today's episode is brought to you by Abridge. We all feel the weight of clinical documentation that follows us home and chips away at our personal time. With Abridge, clinicians can change that. Abridge drafts a structured, clinically useful note at the point of conversation, all seamlessly integrated into Epic and customizable to your specialty while you review and finalize every word. Clinicians have reported significantly less after-hours charting, improved satisfaction, and dramatically lower burnout. Let technology support your day instead of interrupting it. Visit abridge.com to learn how you can focus more on patient care and less on paperwork. Let's put the care back in clinical care. Ali, is it correct that locums kind of always means travel? I mean, are you grouping shifts if you're working, whatever, 2 hours from where you live in Pennsylvania? Are you grouping your shifts together and then staying in hotels? Like, how are you practically doing your work?
I've experimented with multiple different types of ways to do this. This year, I've done something that I absolutely love, and I don't anticipate going back to anything different. I work one block of 7 or 8 shifts in a row in the ER. So what I do is I'll work
At
three
one
or
hospital?
in one hospital.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm credentialed at 2 or 3, but I currently just pick up shifts at one site that I know has been giving me consistent shifts. I'm still credentialed at a couple other sites. I work one block. I stay in a hotel. It's 2.5 hours away from me driving. So I drive down there. I stay there for a week. I accrue a bunch of hotel points. I have over 1 million Hilton honors points
Sure.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, which it translates to over $20,000 in just credit card rewards,
Yeah. And get you
approximately.
status and all that other stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
So when I want to travel, I stay in 5-star hotel for free with my family. Right, I stay there for a week. So I do 3 days or 3 or 4 days, followed by 3 or 4 nights. So I get like a 24-hour sort of time off in between. That's that transition, that shift. And then I go home, and then I'm off for 4 weeks. Most of my jobs have been within 2 to 3 hours of driving distance. I've had 2 over the last 10 years that were flying. One was in Michigan, one was in California. Those are short-lived just because the flights were a little bit much for me, and I needed to kind of be home to start to work on my business and family and things like that. So, most of my sites are within a couple of hours driving distance.
Yeah. You mentioned, having a family right now. For physicians with families, kids, can locums actually make life easier for them?
Absolutely. It's to me, like, I'm gonna give you something that's gonna blow your mind right now.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
I'm sitting down. I'm sitting down.
So check this out. I did a webinar last night, and when I laid this out, it was the first time I actually laid it out like this, and people were just blown away. So it depends on what you want. So right now, like I said, I'm optimizing for time off. Right, I'm still working 8 shifts, and I'm still on target to make around $380,000 this year, working 8 shifts in a row, and that being done for a month. Okay. So that's 22 to 23 days off a month. Now, see, on average, when I was a W-2 employee, I was working about 14 shifts a month.
Sure.
That delta is 6. I'm working 6 less shifts, and I'm still actually making more than I was as a W-2 employee.
Yeah.
Multiply that by 12. That's 72 extra days off in one year. That's over 2 months.
Yep.
Multiply that by 10. That's almost 2 extra years off.
Yeah. Of free time you can spend it however you want. Yeah.
Of time that you're not in the hospital, you can do whatever you want with that. So whether it's time with your family, which a lot of doctors say they value their family, we do. And whether it's traveling, a lot of us want to travel, do things. A lot of us want to do like a side hustle, so a business, whatever. That's the only way I was able to launch an 8-figure business. And I was able to write a book, and I was able to start a podcast, and all this fun stuff that I do now, right? So if you want to actually spend more focused real time with your family, there's no better way. So we don't think about these long-term effects and how these things compound in our life. We just think about, oh, I want to come home at night. Are you really the best version of yourself when you come home after like a 12-hour shift that you just got, destroyed? We have a mom of 5 children that works with us. She enjoys locum. She prefers locum. She just transitioned to full-time locums now because she said, look, between shifts, I get to decompress and be at the hotel and not have to be on the moment I walk through the door when I get home. But now when I'm done with my block of shifts, guess what? I get to be available fully for my family.
I'm full mom, partner, spouse, whatever those roles need to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had my time to decompress and just relax between shifts because our work, man, no one gets it at home.
No, I know.
No one in society gets it.
The thing that I always find funny is whenever I work a night shift, if I'm working 2 or 3 nights in a row, that's actually like 4 or 5 nights in a row.
Yep.
Well, not 4 or 5 days of time because I sleep pre-night shift. So, there goes literally half a day. And I'm also less productive because I don't drink coffee during the morning because I need to be able to take a nap. And then the post night shift conversion back to days, again, I'm kind of a zombie. I'm a terrible husband. I'm only partially awake. I'm really irritable. I'm emotional.
But the expectations are there. The expectations are there, though. No one's going to give you a free pass for if you're at home, you're at home. So you're expected to do what it is that you need to do. And no one's giving you a pass just because, hey, you're recovering from your night shifts. You know what I mean? And so,
Totally. No one else
and
understands it or
no one,
expects it, or
no,
for sure.
yeah.
Well, Ali, one of the things I really appreciate you is how transparent and open you are about just the money piece of it. Because I mean, honestly, that's a big piece of, I think, people's curiosity and anxiety and fear. For somebody who's listening, they hear more money or maybe the same amount of money, but there's also expenses. I assume, you or that other person, they need to have someone that's helping with their kids. Maybe it's their spouse, maybe it's a nanny. They have to have their own health insurance. They have to have their own car. Like, how do those expenses add up, and how do you think about things that way?
That you have to again start thinking like a business, right? And so expenses for family wise, like yes, you can certainly get your spouse some help during those days that you're away, right? I think that's an important thing if you have kids. A lot of these things, if you work with a savvy tax advisor and a CPA, in many cases, and this isn't tax advice, I'm not a financial
Yeah, of
advisor here,
course.
so
Yeah,
don't,
yeah.
just disclaimer. But in many cases, those are write offs from your business. So meaning that you get to use your pre-taxed income to pay for your benefits or some of your benefits, right? Um, so it's again, if you start thinking of like a business, there's actually many ways, and I generally advise doctors to don't try to figure this out on your own. Hire a tax professional, a CPA, and a tax advisor because them two together can help maximize your and reducing your taxable income, and to make sure that you're using your money wisely towards your business. And there's many ways to just do that and still come out on top. On average, a locum doctor comes away working the same number of hours, making at least 130,000 extra as an ER doc minimum.
As take home in the bank account.
Minimum,
Wow.
minimum. Now, again, there's variables, right? This
Yeah.
isn't like
Yeah.
don't take this and say, put Ali said this, but on average, you can easily, and that's over 10 years. That's
Yeah.
$1.5 million almost.
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
years, that's almost 2.5 million plus, right? That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that funds children's college. That does a lot of,
the vacation
um,
home that you
yeah,
wanted, maybe you want
yeah,
to help your parents with something, maybe you wanted to buy that nice sports car for yourself and your family. I mean, I don't know, whatever it is. Like we all have dreams, we all have aspirations, and why not maximize your earning potential?
yeah. I always try to encourage anybody who has a side hustle or another business or is an entrepreneur, like, find a good accountant, CPA, tax attorney, whatever that person is, in the same way that, I think a lot of physicians are like, we never like to say, I don't know. We think we should know everything. But in the same way, I probably wouldn't take financial advice from my plumber. I would take plumbing advice. Like, I also probably wouldn't go to like a GI doctor and say, hey, do you think I should get like a heart cath? And so, like,
Exactly.
we are experts, and it's okay to pay for the time and support of other experts who dedicate their lives to XYZ.
100%. Thank you for saying that. I couldn't have said it better. But that this is one of the key things that I'm trying to drive point home to doctors as well, is be humble and be aware of what your
Yeah.
weaknesses are. Like when I
And
graduated,
it's okay to have
we all
weaknesses.
do. And if you're not aware, you think you're some gift to humanity. Okay, well maybe you are, but recognize where your soft spots are, where you're kind of weak. Finances and business and are usually one of the top ones that doctors have a lack of. So guess what? You get to hire people and you can experiment. Maybe someone works well for you, someone doesn't, right? Or get references from someone else. For me, for example, in the last 2 years, I spent over $50,000 paying mentors who can help guide me in the direction in various aspects of my business, on learning how to build my personal brand, on how to scale my business, how to become a key person of influence in my space. I've dropped a lot of cash. Why? Not I first identified, are they experts in their industry? I really vetted them properly, and then when I found out that they were, I paid them because I want to buy speed and time. I don't want to be sitting figuring this out on my own. I don't have time. I'd rather not just build a deck in the back by myself, spending weekends doing it, because I'd rather pay someone so I can do more important things that are more important to me. Maybe someone likes building a deck, and that's fine. But in my free time, I'd rather spend time with my family, scaling my businesses, relaxing, or just unwinding, whatever it is, doing podcasts with
Literally
you,
whatever you want
whatever
to
you want
do.
to
You
do.
get to choose that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so doctors, the thing is, when we're in residency in medical school, we've been handheld the whole way. And then once we leave, we feel like we've kind of have life figured out in a way. But I felt like I was so underdeveloped. in many ways in my life. Honestly, most ways of my life, I was a very good doctor, but like relationships,
Totally.
I was not very good at, like
Yep.
interpersonal relationships, speaking, finance, absolutely not, business, zero experience, right? Social media, almost none, so, and so on. And so I was very fortunate that I figured I learned about this by myself very early on, and I started investing in people that could bring me those skill sets very quickly and not have to waste time.
Yeah. Ollie, let's move a little into the business of locums. Say somebody wants to give this a try. What would be a good place or a good contract things to look out for, and what would be red flags that you'd say this is not the place you want to go especially as like maybe a new contract physician?
The reason why I even started my own business is because I got played my first locum gig. And I was like, dude, I can't catch a break anywhere. Like, the government's taking half my money. I'm taking a locum job and they're not giving me paying my worth. And they sent me to a dumpster fire site. I'm like, no one cares about us, right? And that was the birth of Locums United, which is why like I basically started the company because I wanted to do right by our doctors. I'm like, I don't want us to have to play the guessing game and then negotiate. Because I'll tell you what happened with me. First job I took, locums company. I won't say their name. They still exist. Very large one, perhaps the largest. And they lowballed me and I didn't know my worth. I was taking $200 an hour as my first job. I should have been getting paid at least 300 to 330 an hour. Again, they prey on doctors not knowing their worth
Because
because
just to make it clear, the locums company is trying to, has a contract or is trying to fill a shift or a seat for this hospital, and then they're going to get the arbitrage in between what the hospital's willing to pay the company minus what they agree to pay you. Is that correct?
yeah, I'll spell it out for you real easy.
Yeah,
So
please.
let's just use some number for example. Let's say that the hospital is being billed by a locums company, say $400 per hour. And the locum company says, hey, I'll find you a doctor for 400 an hour. Obviously, they're not going to pay the doctor that. They have their own expenses.
Yeah.
So now a recruiter goes out and says, how low can I get this doctor? Because I want the biggest delta here because that's where my commission comes from.
The recruiter
So
gets a
the
commission
recruiter gets a
yeah.
commission. So they got me at 200, which is low, right? They're like, heck yeah, we got this doctor. He's a board certified ABM doctor. He's a sucker. Great. Now, if I had known my worth, I would have gotten 300. And so now there's a smaller commission here for them. Do you understand?
Yep.
So their goal is to get you to take the least amount so that way the commission delta is as large as it possibly can be so that way they can go home and enjoy a large paycheck while doing nothing. I don't want to say nothing, but doing very minimal work while we're the ones that are actually working in the ED.
How much is that recruiter getting of that, say, $100 an hour spread? Do you know?
I don't know how much the recruiter takes home. If I had to guess, maybe 10, 15% of the commission.
So every hour you're working,
yes. Yeah.
they're getting $15 an hour for you working.
Or more, depending if you're getting paid,
Yeah, or
like
more.
say,
Yeah.
whatever that number is. But and I don't have a problem with them making money because they're providing a service. But it's like, give me my worth. Like I'm worth more than that. Like I didn't know I was a sucker because there wasn't as much information about locums back then either. But now it's all over the Facebook and Instagram. People talking about it. I'm putting stuff out there, actual numbers. I tell ER docs, don't settle for anything less than 300. 300 per hour should be your Don't get out of bed for anything less than that because if you do, you're getting played. So that's one thing to watch out in your contract, really. And I highly recommend that if you're going to be working with a company, just make sure you find someone who can refer you to their recruiter. Because otherwise, like I said, it becomes like a sales game, and they start asking. They're just like used car salesmen in many senses. There are some good ones out there, but I've had some pretty bad experiences. Which is why at our company we actually don't have any recruiters. There's not one recruiter on the team. It's just through my social media. I start people off at the highest rate at the doctors. I'm like, hey, I'm not negotiating. I'm gonna pay you as much as I possibly can from the get go, while still building a profitable business. If that works for you, great. If not, great. And doctors have been pretty happy with that.
Tied with this episode, Off Call is going to be launching a comprehensive locums salary transparency report. So anybody doing locums work, can get a better sense of how much can or should I be making? What are the financial trade-offs if I give up benefits? It's all going to be transparent, just like everything on Off Call. So if you're listening, please sign up offcall.com. It's all, transparent, but also private and confidential. And we share the aggregate information and the averages so that people can understand the benchmarks in geographic areas, and then we try to splice the data as many ways as we can so that people can have a better sense of like, oh, in Minnesota, I shouldn't be saying 300, maybe I should be asking for 350 or 400 or something like that, because we know there is so much geographic variability. And we also try to include like urban, suburban, rural as well, because I think probably for locums that maybe matters even more.
Yes, a lot of it. There's multiple factors that take into account how much you're going to get paid. Regional or geographic is one. Secondly, we're like you said, whether it's rural, urban, suburban, and also just how, I guess, desperate the site is for help, right? And then that's something that's hard to measure, I guess, unless you actually talk to the hospital and see what their needs are and how soon they need help. Oftentimes, it's very acute, the need, and so if you have a good understanding, if you have a good partner on your side who's going to help make sure that you get paid your worth. I mean, I'll give you an example, man. Last year we posted a job, and yeah, we were paying $375 an hour, and for ER. This year we've posted several at 350, 330 an hour, and those get filled up quick because docs know, right? They're like, when these jobs are high paying, we get hundreds of DMs and applications for them, and so we have to kind of sift through them and see who's really qualified and whatnot. But I'm really excited about what you're doing as well. I think that's an immense service to docs as well.
Thanks. Ollie, let's just pretend that I decide, I live here in San Francisco. I decide, I want to be a locums doc. Where do I start?
There's no systematized way to do this up until what I just launched recently called Locum OS. Now, you can look at these things. Yes, this is what I did when I first started.
Yeah.
I looked at Facebook, which wasn't as well developed back then. Talked to people, but it's like you're just getting little bits of information here and there, and you don't know who to trust. You don't know who's right, who's wrong. And so I basically went back and thought about all the things and mistakes that I made from 10 years ago. And I put them into this training module that we call Locum OS, which is an entire training community platform with live calls with me every week, where we teach you exactly everything you need to know, everything that I've learned over the last 10 years on how to be a successful locum, how to start your journey, and how to maximize and optimize it with all the mistakes that I made that cost me over $200,000 plus.
Yeah. And is that like how to set up your finances and your LLC and all that stuff, or is it like practical stuff like, hey, if you're walking into a new ER for the first time, how to set the right tone and expectations of being brand new to this new facility?
Both and more.
Okay,
So the second thing that you mentioned, I have a whole module called "How to Be a Rockstar Locum." Like, how do you make sure that once you get started, that you hear the words when you're leaving from your last shift? Hey, when are you coming back? Like, those are the words that you want to hear, because then you know that they like you. I've been fortunate because I've done over 1,000 locum shifts, and I've placed doctors maybe 400 or 500 plus over the last 10 years at facilities as a CEO of a locums company. So I get to see both sides, both ends of the spectrum, and understand what it is that really works for locum doctors, not just being a good doc, but also from the hospital side, what are they looking for? Covered it all, from travel hacks to credit card rewards to malpractice insurance to which entity to set up, how to get a CPA and a tax advisor, how to get your benefits set up. That's a big problem for a lot of doctors.
Sure.
Scheduling mastery, I have like 15 training modules, and it's all ACCME accredited for CME as well, so you can use your CME funds.
Cool. That's great. Yeah, I mean, you're really proposing that physicians should be taking locums, which is by definition like a temporary job, and finding a way to turn that into an entire career.
Yes, and good point on that. I'm glad you mentioned that. A temporary job in many cases. I'll tell you, for example, the place that I work at right now, I've been there for 6 years as a locum. The last 3 years as a full-time locum, working essentially full-time hours, 100 plus hours. The thing is that people don't realize is that, they always think, and a lot of residents get told this by their attendings, which you are doing your residents a disservice because you haven't worked locums and you're just telling them myths about stuff that you haven't heard from before but aren't true.
Yeah. Or maybe used to be true 20 years ago,
maybe.
But it's been a long time. Yeah.
What they say is, don't go because they're all dumpster fire sites, this and that. I'm like, listen, guys, I've worked at a dozen plus facilities in the last 10 years. The first one that the other locums company sent me to was a dumpster fire site. Everything else has been amazing. The fact of the matter is, again, it goes back to supply. There's just not enough supply of doctors. So guess what? Maybe someone takes a job in middle of Wisconsin. They're not from there, but they had maybe a good package. So they moved there with their family. Then after 3 years, they're like, hey, well, I don't want to live here anymore. Like my family's here, I had a kid, whatever. I want to move back to California. So there's nothing wrong with that place. That site is a very well functional system, but there's just people don't want to stay there for long term. They want to raise their kids there, but they'll go out there for locums, right? Work a few shifts and come back. And so that's the reality of vast majority of hospital systems that need locums. They're not dumpster fire sites. They are just systems that are 2 to 3, 4 hours outside of like the major cities, and people just don't want to raise a family there.
I've got some quick questions for you.
Sure.
In our last few minutes, what's one financial tool you recommend that every locums doc should use?
Financial tool? I would say a CPA and a tax advisor. It's not technically a tool, but it's do not do this on your own. You're not a finance specialist unless you are. But pay experts for what they're good at, and you do what you're good at and what you're best at. So I highly recommend to just don't try to figure out, because you're leaving money on the table likely because you don't know all the nuances. And so the 5-10 grand that you're paying these people over the course of a year can potentially save you 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand plus, because they know what they're doing. So
Sure.
I'd highly recommend that.
What makes the best locums job you've ever had the best job?
That's a hard question to answer because so many places I've worked at, I've just really enjoyed being there. It's because it's interesting when you're a locum, they actually treat you differently than the W-2 employees in a good way.
Tell me how.
You almost get treated like a guest, and like they kind of are happy to have you there. And also, if you're a good doc, they've seen bad docs, like locum docs
sure.
come through.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, oh my God, thank God you're not like a weirdo, or you're actually a good doc. Wow. Like they're actually surprised. Right. And so,
Yeah.
and I tell docs, it's not that hard. Real quick, there's only 4 things you got to do to be a rock star locum. Okay. I'm going to give you some like game right here. One is to just be responsive when someone emails you from work or from your hospital, whatever. They need something, be responsive. Don't wait a week or 2 to respond to them. Show up on time and work hard. If you're getting paid $3.50 an hour as a locum, don't be seeing one patient an hour, because they're keeping track of your metrics. Everyone's watching you when you come in. So work hard when you get there, and be respectful and courteous to everyone. The nurses, the techs, from the top down, everyone, patients, of course. Don't get into any shouting matches with anyone. Don't flirt with your nurses. Just be a professional.
Yeah.
You I have some stories.
Be surprised. Yeah.
And then last but not least, just complete your charts on time. I always say, listen, within 72 hours of your last shift, have remote access. If you're flying home, whatever, you're driving home, get your charts done, because if those aren't done, the hospital can't bill for those charts. And if they're not getting paid, you're not getting paid. So why make this into a big fiasco? I've had problems with doctors with that as well. You do those 4 things, man, they're going to treat you like a rock star, legit.
And then, Ali, how do you handle your schedule, your calendar? Do you just say, these are the dates available, or is the scheduler sending you what's available, and you're getting the slim pickings, or how do you negotiate that?
Different sites have different ways of approaching this. The vast majority of sites that I've worked at, if as long as you give them advance notice, I just give my shifts in advance and say, hey, these are the dates I'm available in January, for example. And they'll say, hey, looks good. Or they'll say, hey, do you think you could do this week instead? And I'll look at my calendar, make sure nothing personal is aligned up. And I say, yeah, sure, why not? So you got to give a little to get a little as well. You can't just be the doctor, like the locum doctor says, you know what, I'm only working Monday through Thursday, 7A to 7P. No, that's what their employee doctors are working. They need people who are going to be working like the swings as well, some nights, some holidays. The more you got to build equity with your scheduler. Right? If you give a little, they'll make sure that they take care of you as well. So it's not all about just you getting. You have to be able to give some nights and some weekends as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's what any good partnership or contract is. Both parties are getting something that they want and need.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then any final thoughts? Where can people find you, learn about Locum OS and everything you're working on?
Yeah, no, I'm on Instagram. My handle is at @TheRealTopDoc. I'm on Facebook by my name. And then I have thelocumos.com is my mentorship / training platform for anyone who wants to learn and start their journey on locums and take control. And you can find me on YouTube as well. I have a YouTube channel. So
amazing. Dr. Ali Chaudhary, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for joining me today. For interviews with physicians creating meaningful change, check out offcall.com/podcast. You can find How I Doctor on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have new episodes weekly. This has been and continues to be Dr. Graham Walker. Stay well, stay inspired, and practice with purpose.